Hi everyone, and welcome to our next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be learning about Flexbox, how to use Flexbox, and why do we use Flexbox. All right. So in the early days of web development, people, instead of using Flexbox, because it wasn't there, people normally divided the website into block sections or inline, or they use tables to kind of lay out their websites. But with Flexbox, it kind of made it very easy for us to lay out our websites. So in future, because things they use floats and things like that to kind of position their items accordingly in their web pages. Right. So how we going to do this? So let's get started. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do, if we go to our website page, so let's go there quickly, you will see that we have our Flexbox heading, and I just made this kind of a dark gray background to kind of just show you, you will see in a second. So this is just a container just to kind of give us a bit of a feel to kind of see how the items work inside it. So okay, so let's quickly go back to VS Code. Right, so let's save it there. Right, so the first thing that we're going to do, so that's our container. Let me just give it a bigger view width, so 90. So let's give it a 90 view width, so it means it's a little bit bigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a Flexbox container. Okay. Right, so I just use Emmet there. If you press the dot in front and you type in your class item, obviously. So if I do that and I press enter, it creates a div with the Flexbox container class. All right, so let's create another div, and we're gonna let's call this box1 div. So box one, box dash one. Let's copy 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. Right, let's quickly do this. So this will be a bit of a long lesson. So because if you kind of understand how everything works, kind of make it very easy. Right, so I'm just going to fill in a little bit more data, and I'll be back in a sec. All right, I'm finished. All that I did is I just renamed them 1, 2, 3, and 4. I said I'm going to do 3, but I'm going to do 4, and I give them a class of box and 2 classes, box and box1. So all of them has got the same class box, but they got the individual classes as well. So let's quickly style our box class to make it easier to see. So let's make it box. We're going to give it a width of, let's say, 4M, and a height of 4M as well. And let's give it a background color of white. Right, so all this we learned in the previous episodes. Right, so let's quickly see how this looks like in our browser. Now, as you can see, we got our 1, 2, and 3, and 4. We got them right one after the other one. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it like a border as well, because it's kind of not easy to see. Let's quickly do that. Back in VS Code, so give it a border of 1 pixel solid pink. I do that, and then I'm just gonna go for the pink color. And then no. This, that. That's it. Let's save it. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, great. So now we have our 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's our divs. All right. Now you might be wondering, okay, how we can get them. So, but let's quickly show you the magic of Flexbox before I kind of take it any further. So, how do we display these 4 items in Flex? Right, so let's copy our flex container there. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to do this. Very, very easy. So we're going to just say display flex. That's all you do. So if you go in there, if you say display flex, then let's see how that looks like. And voila, you have your items next to each other. So they kind of go in a row. Okay. So this property that we have right there, it's called flex direction. So you have two directions. You've got a row, which is the default, or column. So let's quickly go to column and let's show you. So column is this way. And if we go back to row, let's go back to VS Code. And if we go back to row, just type in row and save it, you will see it's this way. Now, what if we want to space them evenly and let them take out the whole width of the actual container they're in? So before I'm going to do that, I'm just going to keep the Flexbox container also a background. Right, so let's give this one also a background color of, I think, a bluish color. Make it stand out a bit. Let's do this. Give it a blue color and some padding of 1 rem, no, 2 rem. Give it 2 rem right around. Okay, so let's see how that looks like. All right, so now we can see our flex container. So you can see this whole part right there, the whole width and height there. That's our flex container. So if you press F12, if you click on the item right there, it will actually shows you that we displayed it in Flex. Let me make it a little bigger for you guys. You can see we displayed it in Flex, and we give direction is in a row, and we added some padding and obviously the color. So you can also see underneath, under the box model properties, you will see that it is displayed as a Flex item. Right, very, very nice. Right, so what if we want to space these ones evenly? So let's go and do that quickly. So that introduces us to another Flex property, which is called justify content. Now, all right, so the property that we're going to start with, let's say space evenly. So what that does is, let's show you. So if we go back into our browser, let me just turn this off. So as you can see, because we added padding, you will see the spaces from this side and between the content is even. It's just because of the padding that we have right there. This space, this space, this space. So you kind of can display your items evenly. So there's another property that we have as well. So let's just do them inside our dev tools. Right. Justify content center. So then you kind of center everything. Another one that we have is space around. So what happens now is, if you look at, you see this space here is the same. It's in half right there. See? The space right here is the same as half, 2 times the width there, 2 times there, 2 times there, same around there. Okay, so if you kind of, it's very easy kind of now to kind of space your content. The other one that we have is space between. Do that. So what now happens is it will actually push the content out to the side, and then the spaces in between them is kind of even like that. Very, very nice and very easy to use. Right. So the next one that we have, right, so we had the center and then we had all the spacing. Right. So let me just go to space evenly. Okay, so that's kind of how you can space your items. Because normally when you do a layout, you will have either 2 or 3 content. So instead of the 4 boxes, you can kind of easily set your items like one on this side, one on that side. Okay, so all right, so let's move on to our next property. Okay, while we're still busy with the flex directions, let's quickly show you guys something. You can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the other thing that we can do is obviously the column. So the other property that you can have is column reverse. So what that does is go from 4, 3, 2, 1, or you can have row reverse as well. So instead of starting from 1, you can actually put 4, 3, 2, and 1. So that's what you can do with the flex direction properties. You can obviously do them in row, which is this is the standard like 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can do row reverse. I hope you guys, let me just zoom in a bit. I think that's kind of the maximum I can do here. Otherwise everything gets smoothed up too bad. Right, or the column on column reverse as well. So that's our properties right there. All right, the next one that we're going to deal with is flex wrap. But let's quickly see what that does. Let's go back to VS Code. And let's add some more. Just gonna do quickly a couple of more. I'll be back. All right, what I've done now is I've just added a couple of more from 5 to 10. So let's quickly see how this looks like in our browser. As you can see, we have 1 to 10. Now the next property that we're going to discuss is called flex wrap. Now it looks like, let me show you before we add flex wrap. So let's quickly make this smaller. Now let's say you have your items 1 to 10 obviously right there. Now what if we make it smaller? As you can see, as we push it smaller and smaller and smaller, everything just gets squished. And that's not ideally what you're looking for. Right, so let's say this was a cell phone and that was your flex items, and they will be all squished. But that's not what we're looking for. So what do we want now? All right, so the best thing to do in this situation is actually called a property flex wrap. So let's quickly add that in our VS Code. So the default one is actually flex wrap, actually no wrap. So that is actually our default. But what we're actually looking for is we call flex wrap. Right. So what that does, I will quickly show you. Kind of makes your job a whole lot easier as a developer. So let's quickly go back, do the same thing. Oops. But as you can see, let me just do this. As your content is, let's say the screen sizes are getting smaller and smaller, you see what's happening? The item just get moved onto the next line. So if this was the cell phone, the kind of property will actually just go between them. How nice is that? Right. So very easy to use. That's why I prefer Flexbox in my stylings. The next one that we're obviously going to discuss is grid. Also very handy, but as you can see, it makes your website fully responsive. All right. So now the next thing that you're going to probably think about now is if you look like this, you will probably want even spaces between them. All right. So let's quickly do that. So we keep this little window open here on the side, and let's just kind of do this. Remove justify content. And then we're going to say, right, so the next property that you might be looking at is called column gap. So let's say we give it a column gap of 1 rem and we give it a row gap of 1 rem. So let's see how this looks like in our browser. Now, as you can see, refresh that. You can see now we have 1 rem gap there and 1 rem gap right there. This is the row gap and this is the column gap. So if we make it a little bit smaller, like that, you will see you've got even spaces between your flex items. So if you can look here, this one is a flex item, this one is a flex item, this one is a flex item. All right. So very, very handy. All right. Now, what if, let's say you design a website. I'm just going to remove quickly the other. So let's remove the other 6 right there. And we're just going to leave those 4 quickly. Right. So we got our 4 items right here. But what if we want this column to be a little bit bigger? So let's say we got this column here and we have this one here. And we want this one to take up the full width of the space. So you've got a sidebar here and a sidebar there, and you want to do this one to be the full width. That brings us to our next property. But before we do that, I just need to get you guys to another property that we need to discuss. It's called align content. Now, the first one that we're going to do is center. So let's see how that looks like in Firefox. All right. So what happens now is all the content. This is our flex container. This is our flex items, and everything is aligned in the center. The next property that we have is we call space between. Let's put space between. See how that looks like in Firefox. As you can see, the items are spaced between as well. So the justify content works this way. Align items works vertically, and justify horizontally. Right. So just to kind of get you guys to, there's more properties and you can explore them, but I just wanted to show you that one as well. Right. So let's get started. So I just reduced the other ones as well. So let's go to our next property. We're just going to call it box 1, and the other one is box-2. Copy this down, make it quicker, and 3. Now the next property that we have is called flex grow. Right? So we're going to keep this one at 1. We're going to flex grow this one to flex grow 1 to 8, and flex grow this one to 1. Let's see how this looks like. All right. So as you can see, this one is 1, this one is 2, this one is also 1, and this one is 8. So basically, if you want to have this one like your sidebar, this one a sidebar, and yes, quite easy to style them. So let's give them a little bit of a gap between them. Okay, so let's give this one just a margin of 0.85. All right. Just something small and noticeable. Okay, so let's go back to a Firefox. And voila, got our little gaps between. So what we have now is, let me just remove this. Right, so we got our sidebar, our content in the middle, and everything's kind of nicely spaced as well. So let me go to box 1 and let's do this as a 2 or even a 4. As you can see how handy that flex grow method is. Okay, so very, very handy, very nice, and easy to use. Okay, so let's see what else we need to discuss. I kind of want to guys show you more or less everything. So that's kind of to space your content. Okay, so the other property that we have, instead of, let's do this one. Let's say flex basis. Right? The flex basis is kind of to let you know the initial width that you want your flex item to be. So for us, let's do this one, 20 view widths. So the initial start of our flex item will be 20 view width. That's what flex basis is. So let's see how that looks like. Now, as you can see in our browser, we have our, let's click on our flex item right there. You will see it's got a flex basis width of 20 view width as well. Right? So that you can kind of set with flex basis, you can kind of set your items like that. But now the problem is, start to see how nice this looks. With the flex item actually automatically moves over. But now the problem is on smaller screens, this view width is 20 view width because the screen size is smaller. So you just have to take that into consideration as well. So that's why the flex grow is kind of useful. It will kind of grow accordingly to your screen size there. So the next thing that we're going to discuss. Okay, I've made just a couple of changes to our flex container and obviously to our content here as well, to our flex and our divs. If you can see our divs right here in our container. Just made a couple of changes. So let me show you in Firefox how this looks like. So this is our container, the gray, and this is our flex items right there. But what we want to do, I want to show you another property that we have in VS Code. So if we go down here, we just say box number 3. All we're going to do is we're going to say align cell center. Right, so let's see how this looks like. So as you can see, it will align itself to the center of our flex container right there. As you can see, it aligns itself to the center. Let me just pull this up so quickly to change it. Make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. Let me just, as you can see, flex align center. So the other properties that you have is auto, which is obviously the default, baseline. Right, so the one that we can use flex start is there, then we got flex end, bottom, or you can just say end, does the same thing, center right there, and obviously start at the top. Right, so you can explore more of the align cell. So yep, all right. Thanks guys for watching. I know this was a little bit of a long video. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you don't like the video, please give it a dislike. And if you can give us just some constructive feedback at the bottom in order to improve these videos as well. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.